Hey, all right. Welcome to Masters of Moment, brought to you by Freshworks. I'm Alan Berkson. Thanks for joining us and taking the time to explore topics to help you improve customer experience and more easily delight your customers. When we talk about customer service metrics, it's often about overall productivity, first call response, meeting SLAs. What we may miss too often is the personal productivity of the people delivering the service. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. My guest is Marcus Demergy, founder of MPocket. And we're going to discuss prioritizing tasks and improving personal productivity. Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Alan.
So just to give people some context and to help them understand why we should be listening to you, just give them an idea of how you come to this topic and how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, let's start there. I mean, I've been in the CX space for over 25 years now. Founded a couple companies, and I've worked with sales and inside sales teams for quite a while. Did a lot of trainings, especially sales trainings, to help them understand what's important and how to prioritize their tasks in order to be successful. And now with software coming into the game, we try to transition them and help them to work with software together to be more productive, but at the same time be human to interact with your customers.
You know, when we always talk about digital transformation, it's too often people just talk about tools, but it's the people and the processes tool too that make a big difference in terms of their being effective with it, right?
Correct, absolutely. I mean that's the most important part, which most of the time is overlooked. And I mean, we all know the bots and the technology that's out there, but nothing will beat the human interaction which we have with each other, where people understand and get the feeling of how you are today and how you feel to better help you solve the issue you have.
So one of the first topics, which before I started the show, I had to turn off my phone. I had to make sure I had all my different windows are open. Things beep, things buzz. Attention management is a key element of productivity. How should we approach this?
I mean, as you said, attention management is one part of productivity. But first of all, we need to understand the big picture of what is productivity itself. And for myself, at least over the last 20 something years, productivity consists of 5 essentials. It starts with the mindset. So you have to bring everything on the same boat, help them understand why they actually do something. So what's the company goal you have, and so that you actually understand why are you working on certain tasks. Number 2 is to break that down to have a plan. So what's your strategy for those tasks? So you break the company goal down to a team goal. You break the team goal down to your individual goals. And then you actually know, okay, this is what I have to do. This is my plan for me to interact. So on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, we even break it down to on a weekly basis. So, and the reason why we do that is we want to give people responsibility, and that's super important for us. It's not about to be accountable for a certain task. It's about giving people responsibility working on certain tasks. And that's I think one of the key differentiators when it comes to the mindset on how we break tasks down to be more productive. We need to give people the feeling that they're really important, and the tasks they do and the work they do is really important to the company goal. And then we actually come to the point where attention plays a key role. So,
well, before you get to the attention, I just want to maybe summarize one of the things that we talk about at Freshworks is empowering people. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this responsibility and accountability, but essentially giving them some autonomy, maybe, to empower them to solve problems. There's bigger company goals that we need to achieve. and working with obviously you're not doing it in a vacuum, but you're working with those goals to find out how do I participate in, and understanding, once you understand what you're trying to accomplish, then you have to let your employees have the autonomy to work within. And I think you're probably going to talk about what are their strengths and how do they particularly operate. No two people are alike, right?
Absolutely. And everyone has their own goals, and you always have to figure out what's best for them, but also to get them out of their comfort zone. Which for me, that's what at least my team always tends to say. So, hey, Marcus always helps me to get out of my comfort zone. That's his personal strength. So, trying to work on that.
But I like my comfort zone, Marcus. Why would I want to get out of my comfort zone? But I
Yeah.
guess it depends on what do I want and what am I willing to do to get it, right? That's
Exactly.
what it comes down to. All right. So let's talk about attention management.
I mean, attention management is your desire to remain focused. I mean, that's I think the key part. In order to understand that, there's a couple of topics to that. I mean, we work with different tools to help people understand what it actually means. I mean, for example, with inside sales teams, when I used to work with them, I always try to help them understand what actually it means to win to help existing customers stay happy. So, I mean, there's the 1-3-7 rule, which maybe some of you already know. So, factor 1 effort is to keep existing customer happy. Factor 3 effort is what you need to have is to get to turn an unhappy customer into a happy customer, or to return to get a lost customer back to become an existing or happy customer. And the last one is to acquire a new customer. The factor of, or the effort is factor 7. So just to understand those topics helps most of the people to focus on the right things. So because we are always distracted about so many things at the same time, we need to focus on why is it important that we actually talk to those customers.
Yeah, I always look at how do you whenever you start something, you want to say, how am I going to measure my success?
Mm-hmm.
And if the goal is I've got a happy customer to keep it, and I know that that's easier than trying to win a new customer, that gives me a different mindset in terms of what I want to accomplish that day. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I mean, we have to start to understand it at the beginning instead of just like going out there and answering phone calls. What is the effect? So if you understand that that's super important, what you actually do there, then the way you can focus on it is very different to just like, okay, it's another phone call.
So look, I'm not a very organized person, and I bet you there's a lot of the listeners out there who may align with that, or it may feel the same way. I feel like, can I actually do that? Can I actually be in a position to improve my productivity when you talk about task management or prioritization, and I kind of cringe?
Yeah, I mean, everyone feels that way. I mean, if we look at our situations today, everyone has so many tasks during the day, and our day is just limited in time. And we sometimes tend to like switch tasks and focus on something which is not so important. What I help people to do in those situations is to prioritize your tasks, but you have to write them down. So in order to understand what do I have to prioritize on? So what do I have to focus on? And the way we do that, at least in our organization, is it's one of those balanced scorecards, or ICE, what we call them. So you write all your tasks down that you have to do, which already helps you to understand, hey, this is actually, there's a lot of stuff I'm working on, or it's actually not that much. And then you start giving those task numbers. So it starts with impact. What's the impact this task has? then how confident are you that this is going to be successful? And how easy is it that you can get that task done? And once you give those task numbers, it automatically gives you a score. And surprisingly, you're like, da-da, it's actually not those tasks I have to focus on. It's the other 2-3 tasks I really need to focus on because they have the biggest impact. And so that helps you structure your day.
I like that a lot. So you're saying that I can't just work on the easy stuff. Is that what,
I
what you're
mean,
trying to do, Marcus?
you could.
But that's not an effective use of my time. And I think related to that is if I say productivity, immediately people think about volume, and I think that may be a misrepresentation of what productivity means. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to differentiate between performance and productivity. Performance is volume, so it's effectiveness.
I closed 50 tickets today.
Exactly.
Woo-hoo.
Like 50, 100 tickets. I was so many. But productivity is actually efficiency. So it's really about how many customers were super happy. Maybe I didn't close 50 tickets. I just closed 30, but those 30 were super happy. And maybe I turned them into happy customers, or I made an upsell because those customers were super happy. So it's really about trying to differentiate between, do I need to do a lot of tasks? But that for me is always, it comes back to the if you look at the 5 essentials, you have to define the goals in a way that it's not only about performance. You have to define those goals for your team so that you focus on productivity and not performance. So it helps everyone to understand, hey, this is actually what I need to focus on. But if I don't know, I try to make volume. So
there's two parts to this. One is my version of what I need to accomplish. I can rank my tasks, but at the other part is, as a manager, it's almost it's negotiation is probably not the right word, but we've got to align so that, you know, what is the advice for managers to help their team better understand or better align with their personal productivity with goals?
I mean, we all know how it is when we get tasked. It's easy to start running, but to run a marathon is actually quite difficult. So for me, the managers
I ran a
only
marathon.
I didn't. I just used the sprints,
Yeah,
but at least not at work. At work,
right.
my task is really just to, like, everyone starts running and they get the 80% of the work done. But the last 20% is there, and it stays and it stays and it moves from one week to the other. And from my perspective, the manager's most important part of their job is to make sure that those 20% get done. And that's the most difficult part sometimes for some people. So you have to motivate them, you have to help work with them, ask the right questions, try to figure out what's holding them from closing or finishing the task. And that's, for me, that's where I see that's the critical role a manager has to take and understand. So that, I mean, everyone's running. I mean, this is fantastic. And you're like, oh yeah, they're all busy. Fantastic. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, I figure out, hey, this is still open. What's happening with this one? Why is that? Why is it not done? So I mean, that's where you need to start coaching and helping and trying to figure out, work on the strength, getting them out of the comfort zone again, even if they're very comfortable. So that's what you really need, what they need to focus on, in my opinion.
I love that, Marcus. I've had, people have to-do lists and they keep carrying it over from day to day to day. And I probably have considered that there's, what is keeping me from doing the other ones. And sometimes maybe it's just not a priority, or priorities change. But I think too often it's either too hard, too uncomfortable, or too complicated or something that's keeping me. And that's a very effective use of manager's time. And I guess an element of this is making sure that you have that rapport with your team, that they're comfortable saying, if they're afraid to tell you something's not working, or they're afraid to tell you they're having a problem with something, that's not a culture that's really going to be able to help them be more productive, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the mindset when I talked about at the beginning. It's really important to have everyone on the same boat. It's important that you give those people the trust that they can ask you at any time when they have an issue, so that people can do mistakes. People are allowed to fail. I mean, we always say fail and fail fast, but actually it's really about giving them the chance to fail, but also trying to be open and supportive when they're really struggling to come back to you and ask a question. I mean, that's a mindset or a team culture or company culture that you have to cultivate in a certain way.
Yeah, I don't like the word fail and fail fast. I think
Yeah,
because I think it sends the wrong message. I think at the core of it is an element of vulnerability. I'm not afraid to make a mistake,
yeah,
or I'm because if I'm going to try something new, or if I'm going to, look, technology. This is something I've talked about before. When it comes to automation, and there's a question here about AI as well. Technology, if a problem has happened before, and we have an answer, technology can answer it the next time. That's what
yeah,
bots are for, right? But
yeah.
so an agent is generally facing a situation that they haven't faced before, or no one has. They need to have listening skills and empathy and critical thinking. So saying that they should fail, I think it's more that don't be afraid to take the risks and be vulnerable. And not everything's going to work out great, but if you can cultivate that type of culture of, hey, this is how it works, this is how we learn, and this is how we get better. I think that's really effective. Marcus,
Absolutely.
there's a question here from the group. How do you think I should use technology like AI to my advantage when it comes to being more productive? Can AI do more than just take up the repetitive tasks?
That's actually a very good question. We get that question quite often. I mean, there's a lot of people are afraid of technology, and on the one hand, we say they just do repetitive tasks. We on our end say when you do your ICE score, try to get the lowest scores to be covered by technology. That's your biggest win. So if you can manage to get those lowest scores covered by technology, you can focus on, and that's one of the key messages one of my mentors had to me is like, if you want to focus on more important tasks, you have to give away other tasks which are not so important. If you give them away, you can focus on the more important tasks, but that's something you need to learn. So you always need to you tend to hold on task and try to do everything yourself. So having said that, I believe that AI can definitely at the moment do repetitive tasks. Sorry for that. And that's good because then you can focus on the human part, which technology cannot cover. I mean, less listening, empathy, understanding the situation your customers in. There's a lot of it's not about only customers' social demographic data. It's also about psychographical data about your customers. So why are they in that situation at that moment in time? And that's something that technology cannot cover. So of course it's important. I think if you let technology do the other tasks for you, you can focus on what's important for you, and that's listening in and making those customers super happy and being productive on your end, which is not the volume, but this customer satisfaction. That's really what makes you at the end of the day super happy and satisfied, because you're like, hey, I had 20 customers today and they were all super happy, instead of I had 50 tasks today and they were 30 of them were terrible, but I mean I did them and the other 20 were okay. So
Oh, it's like what you said in the beginning. How do I measure success? Am I measuring success in the number of tasks I did, or the context you said, which is keeping happy customers, winning back
yeah.
unhappy customers, et cetera. So I think that makes a big difference. By the way, anyone, if you're, we're going to have we're going to be sharing some of this information that Marcus is, we're putting together I guess an ebook or a document with some of this stuff. If you're interested in it, just comment on here somewhere. Say just hashtag Freshworks, and we will make sure that you get a copy of that. I mean, look, ICE. I think that is a great framework, and obviously the 5 essentials I think is really good. We got a couple more questions here, Marcus. One is. Um, we've been talking about personal productivity, I guess, at the end point. Should businesses invest in tools that aid managerial productivity, and what does that look like?
That's an interesting question.
Well, just as an example, if there's 20% of
Yeah.
what each of my employees is doing that I have to make sure they get done, and I have 30 employees, that I think I need to be able to prioritize that too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the way I look at that question is there's tasks out there. I mean, of course, companies need to invest into managers being able to set up OKRs, for example, like whatever tool you want to use. But there's a ton out there. ICE is a tool that can easily be implemented. But of course, if you use an Excel sheet or whatever you want to use. There's a ton of software and tools out there, and I do believe they totally make sense for managers to be more productive. But nothing like all of that is necessary. It's a framework. That's those 5 essentials I talk about. All is covered by tools at the end of the day, and you need to learn to work with those tools. But the human part is the one at the end of the day, which you need to focus on when it comes to working with your team.
Look, I want to do a quick shout out to Lean, who's on this. She says, "I think the human connection is really important, and making AI manage all tasks doesn't really show that a company cares about its customers. That it's that balance of the AI should support the human connections, not necessarily replace it." Wow, I sound like a futurist or something. I don't know. So one last question from the audience, and then I want to see if we can get some cool insights from you in terms of delighting customers. Improved productivity and high quality do not happen by accident. Is that true? I feel like it's a simple question, and the answer is, of course, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've spoken around it in terms of volume doesn't necessarily mean success, and efficiency is not necessarily success. That there's got to be a quality aspect to it as well, right?
I mean, it all comes down to, I totally agree. It all comes down in a certain way to the comfort zone. How much are you willing to learn and add to your skills? I mean, every conversation you have with a customer helps you to understand certain aspects. It's called experience, right?
Right.
Helping to working with technology to do certain things so you can focus on that is definitely something that's super important. So it improves your productivity. So improved productivity and high quality do not happen by accident. That's totally true, yes, because it's experience. It's based on experience. Technology is just going to help you do that, but it's going to help you do that faster. That's something we probably need to understand. So it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by accident. But if you accept that technology is actually there to get you there much faster than you can get there by not using technology. That's the key aspect I would say is important. We need to understand.
Yeah, technology is the means, or is part of the end, but it's not the end. It's not what we're shooting for. All right. So what I've heard today is part of productivity is understanding the context in which you're working. So you understand how to prioritize things. I love your ICE framework and just being able to prioritize tasks. I love the fact that you've now shared with me how I can no longer have that 20% of my stuff that I don't do every day carried over, because there's probably some important stuff. And there's a framework where he talks about urgent and important, and we tend to do things that are urgent but not necessarily important. And I think there's a lot of important but not urgent things in that 20% that doesn't get done on a daily basis. Marcus, before we go, what's your one line of advice on delight? How do we what can we do? What's an easy thing we can do, or at least a step we can take to help delight our customers?
I think one easy thing we can do is accept or understand that software and automation helps you to. Let's start on the other way around. In order to touch our customers emotionally, we need to understand that there is software and automation that can help us do that, and do that much better than we can do it today. And I think that's the one thing one advice I have for everyone. We need to get back to that. And that's super important.
Yeah, that emotional connection is what keeps customers happy, keeps happy customers happy, and maybe helps you turn around the other ones. No, that's fantastic. All right, Marcus, how can people keep up with things, all things Marcus Demergy? How can they reach you, or how can they get in touch with you or follow up?
I think the easiest is LinkedIn, where I'm pretty active. So if you're interested to connect, just do that on LinkedIn. I'm happy to accept invitations. Don't do that on a regular basis, because I try to be productive, but I do once my ICE score tells me to do that. But yeah, love to stay connected with everyone. If you're feel free to just drop me a note or just connect on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And once again, if you're interested in getting a copy of the 5 essentials that Marcus was talking about, just leave a comment, #Freshworks, and we will get back to you. Before we go, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about a very controversial topic, which Marcus brought up before we started in the green room. And this is I need to set the record straight. So, Marcus, what was the question you asked me? Come on.
Alan wants to give you guys advice on the best blueberry bagels in New York.
And so I reject the premise, because a blueberry bagel is not a bagel. It's a fruity, savory snack. But blueberry is not. But blueberry bagels are not bagels. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Marcus, for the conversation. And I love your sense of humor. I love your energy, and I think you shared some great insights. Actually, I learned a lot today as well, which generally I do, but this was great. Looking forward to continuing the conversation on the next episode of Masters of Moment, brought to you by Freshworks. Thanks for coming, Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.